Ladies and gentlemen, it's David. I'm coming to you today with some wild stories, man. The markets are plunging, one of the worst days in years. And as the markets are collapsing and people's retirements are evaporating from in front of them, we got to figure out what on earth does this mean? But more importantly, what will be coming down the line, because that is going to affect the livelihood of you and your family. So let's get right into the articles of the day, because we got to make sure that you don't go down with this ship. All right, let's jump straight away into one of the articles that we'll be talking about today. This is, to me, absolutely cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. The world has lost it. We're all going down. I don't understand how we're letting this happen. So the stocks are tumbling, their worst day since June of 2020. Let's jump right into that article. If you want to go check that out, that's on CNN.com. It says that the U.S. stocks plummeted to their worst day since June 11th, 2020. Key August inflation data ticked upward. Now, the Dow lost 1,276 points, which is 4%. Crazy town that lost 4%. S&P 4.3%. NASDAQ down 5.2%. I mean, the bloodbath on all levels. Absolutely crazy. So why did these stocks lose so much money? It's because of the inflation data that came out today. Now, all you guys know that I live in Canada, right? But Canada, I can see the US from my house. It is so close, right? And the US is not only the reserve currency of the world, it is the primary trading partner with Canada. We are a land filled with natural resources, and almost everything we make goes down to the US. So whatever happens there happens here. I grew up my whole life understanding that when the US catches a cold, the rest of the world catches a flu. No pun intended. So, we have to understand the dynamics of how this works and how it impacts us. Number one, the biggest industry in Canada is the real estate industry. This is the industry that I operate in. I'm a broker, but this is the industry that can tank countries and take them down, especially in North America, where the prices of homes are so expensive. They generate so much of the GDP, or gross domestic product, of a country. Imagine all the commissions that are paid to agents, the realtors that are involved, the brokerages that are involved, the lawyers that are involved, the designers, the people who go in and renovate the properties. We have an endless list of industries that go through this. It is huge. Now, it is the one that could push us over past recession into something a lot worse. Don't like to use the D word, but it could be a lot worse. Now, let's look at some of the data. Now, next article, I want you just to, with your pen, write down, this is Axios.com, research firm, Axios.com, the everywhere inflation. I like this article. Couple notes. It says there is no sugarcoating it. August's inflation numbers are terrible news for everyone rooting that the economy has a soft landing. If you believe that we are heading for a soft landing, keep dreaming. Anybody who has followed me for the past 6-7 months, I have said that this is not going to end well. That's why we fixed all of our rates last year when they started saying that they're going to raise rates. What does it say? The big picture. Yes, even as gas and other forms of energy fell, even though that happened, okay, it said prices of everything else that you buy, including food, medical stuff, all of it is going up. So that means inflation is going up. As inflation keeps going up, even though we raise the interest rates at the highest rate than we have since the 90s, inflation is still out of control. So it says after soft July readings, there was good reason to hope that the U.S. was gliding toward lower inflation. The only reason, P.S., that we thought, we were going to be gliding in for a soft landing is because that's what we hear in the news. Remember, this is an election year, right? Really important. We got to tell everybody it's going to be okay. But guys, listen, I'm not saying listen to me. I'm saying listen to yourself. Go read the articles. Go see for yourself what's happening. Anybody in any other year but 2022 would have agreed that we were in a recession back in April. Okay. But everybody wants to, for political reasons, say, yes, we are. No, we're not. Blah, blah, blah. So this is where, how do you survive in a world of untruths everywhere? You have to be able to figure this out on your own and be able to read through the lines. That is my best piece of advice. Read a lot about it, because your future, your RSPs, your children's education funds, everything counts on you understanding this one thing. Okay, so if you go into the rest of the article here, it says that inflation remains high and entrenched. And that was a dangerous word that the Jerome Powell had mentioned back at Jackson Hole. They were afraid that inflation is going to be entrenched. And so if we look at what the inflation was at 8.3%, absolutely bananas, super, super high ratings. You know, we have to be very afraid of an interest rate that is that high, because what did I say since back in April? For us to control inflation, we have to have interest above inflation, right? Remember, it's not just the rates that you pay, it is also the rates that you get paid if you save. Why on earth would you accept 3% interest on a dollar that's devaluating, by their words, by 8% per year? That means I'm losing 5% a year. And for some reason, people are lined up like sheep to lose 5%. Is this the line for you to steal 5% of my stuff? I mean, it's a terrible deal. I don't understand why anyone does it. All right, let's keep going then, okay? This is where I liked it. The sheer breadth of the pressures suggests our inflationary woes are not just isolated to a few sectors hit by the pandemic of the Russian-Ukraine war. Really? So it's not Putin's fault, right? Of course it's not Putin's fault. He didn't add, I mean, he added to the problem, but the problem was already there. Nobody wants to talk about the fact that you printed 40% more money in the last 2 years, right? Nobody wants to talk about that. Rather, it points to an overall economy that is simply too hot, with more money sloshing around after goods and services. Listen, this is the definition of every single time that there is been a recession, that it is a too much money chasing too few goods. Okay, so that is normal. Okay, but where did the money come from? The money came because it was helicopter money. They call that helicopter money like spraying it on the city, like pamphlets back in the 40s, but they're just depositing it in people's accounts nonstop, relentlessly, and it devalues the dollar. And so this happens every single time they do it. It's funny that they don't learn from it, right? But it is a age-old trick, man. It's been around forever. But I liked the way that they said that it shows you that it is not just the Russian war. So as much as they just want to blame it on Putin, listen, there's a lot of other things that cause this. And the number one thing is that money printing. And it says there's just too much money in the system. Okay, you guys, let's jump on to the next article. Hope you're taking notes, and you can pause the video and go back and see what the other articles that I'm mentioning are. The next article I want you to look at is 1945.com. If you go check out that article, it also talks about today what they mean for the U.S. economy and for, by extension, Canada. So, you know, like I was saying before, Canada is so entrenched. We're so together with the United States. And a lot of our policies and the way that we have things set up are very, very similar. But when the CPI number comes out in the United States, that immediately dictates what the US will be doing for their rate hike, which right now is a near guarantee. It's at 0.75 at least. So if that happens, Canada has a 92% chance that we also will get the same rate hike that the US did. Do you see the dominoes here? So if the US has high CPI, they have a high rate, then we have high rate, and our home prices drop. So do our stocks. So this is why we got to be careful for this stuff, you guys. All right, so let's jump into this next article here. Again, 1945.com. It says the article is new inflationary numbers mean the US is destined for a hard landing. Okay, so if we go there, it says it heightens the chance of a hard landing by next year. Listen, I don't think it's going to be next year. It could be before that. So don't think that you have time. I can wait. Not a big deal. Okay, it's happening. All right, and it says today's disappointing numbers give the Fed little reason to think inflation is nearly under control. Of course, remember, you have to have rates above inflation. So if inflation's at 8%, we would have to have interest rates at 10%. Okay, so just think about that for a second. What do you think would happen if our interest rates hit 10%? I got to tell you, we'd be finito, okay? Home prices would drop another 50% from where they are today. So big, big issues if that ever happened. But let's talk about percentage of chance that will happen. Near zero. So high interest rates happen to those people who have the highest amount of debt. Who has more debt than the governments? Okay, they can't even afford any of their own debt. All right, so let's continue with this article. 1945. Since the start of the year, the U.S. equity and bond markets have lost around 20% in their value. That has resulted in the evaporation of $12 trillion. Let's hear that again. It has evaporated $12 trillion, or around 50% of the GDP in U.S. household wealth. $12 trillion gonzo from their wealth. So this is big. That is serious. 50% of the GDP equivalent. $12 trillion gone out of people's wealth. That's a lot of money. And this is going to continue. Hasn't finished yet. I'm going to show you a chart in a few minutes, and you're going to see that we got a long way to go. So this is where I keep saying, don't go down with the ship, right? If you had that big house, I'd be thinking twice about it. Okay. Now, let's see what this lady says. This author, if you go to the article CNBC, the Fed is going to pivot on 3 stages, was her claim. They said that the Fed funds rate is their principal tool. We know that. There's not that much that the government can do. They can adjust monetary policy, which kind of affects the interest rates. Now, they're not directly correlated, but they're very, very close together. And it says the period of accelerating rates has impacted the real economy, but it has squeezed the borrowing costs for real people, real consumers. Wait a second. You got to hear that again, okay? The period of accelerating rate hikes is squeezing the borrowing costs for real people and real consumers, as opposed to the fake people and the fake consumers, okay? Listen, guys, this rate hike is only hurting real people. I find these guys funny, man. If you can't laugh, you're going to cry. I'm telling you. Okay, so why is this happening? Okay, so this is the reason why there is inflation. I want you to go to whatever country that you live in, and you're going to go on Google, and you're going to write M2 money supply with whatever country you're talking about. If you're talking about France, or you're talking about Turkey, if you're thinking about US, Canada, go to any website, whatever you want to go to, and type in those numbers. All right, so let's look at the Fred charts for the United States. M2 money supply. Now, you don't have to go back to the max. Even if you look at 10 years, look at this thing, man. It is like you're taking off from an airplane, okay? It goes like this, a straight line. What is that, like 30 degrees? And then around 2020, they just went full-blown party, okay? It takes off like a rocket. Okay, so I need you guys just to pay attention to the last couple months. So for those of you who are not looking on the charts, it kind of goes up, 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 and then it just levels off, okay? It levels off and drops like, what would you call that? A millimeter, okay? And so all of this damage in the market, home prices down 50%, 40%, 30%, 54% of businesses saying they're going to be laying people off, okay? All of this damage, $12 trillion in the U.S. equity market alone, okay? Evaporated. All of that happened by this much of a move on the chart, okay? This much. There's a lot farther it can go. So this is the only little bit. Can you believe all that damage from that much on a chart? I can't. That's crazy. So it can drop a lot more. But as the U.S. has not even gone back to 2019 spending, we are still at like double what it was in 2019. This is just crazy town. So what are they going to do to fix that? And this is where We did another video earlier in the week on this. If you go to fee.org, they have a story that is there on the Biden pushing the digital dollar. And they said here, President Biden directed the federal government to explore this idea. And new reporting suggests the Biden administration may soon press forward with their efforts on the so-called digital dollar. Again, they have not said that they will start it next year. They are starting the payment rails for this type of system. So it says the U.S. Treasury Department will advise the federal government to press forward on work to issue a digital dollar, though it should not only take the final step if it's a sign-off from the government-created tokens, then they're in national interest. Okay, they're in national interest. It's in their national interest to start a digital blockchain dollar. So the cool thing about a Bitcoin, okay, or Ethereum is that they're permissionless, meaning anybody can have an account. If you go to a poor country, like when you go to, let's say, El Salvador, for example, they only make like $25 a month. But if you want to have a bank account and have credit, you need to pay them $15 a month for that privilege. And only if you have applied and they've approved you to come into the bank. Otherwise, you're on your own. You have no credit whatsoever. And so that's what they mean by permissionless. If you want to go open a Bitcoin wallet, you can do it for free. Doesn't cost you anything. Everybody has access to this type of banking. But when you have a digital dollar created by the country, you don't have access to that. You can only come on if you have permission. And it's not very discreet, right? It gives the government a whole host of other tools that they can control. Now, remember, we are not going down that hole of conspiracy theory. We're not doing that. But we do know, where's my thing here? This is an Ethereum. Ethereums are always based off of smart contracts. This is programmable if, then, when statements. You're familiar with that with Excel spreadsheets. And so when that is in place, there is a potential, I'm not saying it's going to happen, a potential to really control what you do in your day-to-day life. Like imagine, let's just take some hypotheticals. Imagine you were only supposed to have so much gas, or have your house at a certain temperature, or they don't want you to have enough, as much meat anymore. Or maybe you can only buy so much paper. It's like rationing what we could have. It could also be that you cannot buy lottery tickets or alcohol or cigarettes with those dollars. It also could be that the dollars have a timestamp on them, where if the dollars are not spent within 30 days, they disappear, or they can only be used close to your home. Listen, I'm not saying that that is going to happen, not in the slightest, right? But there are countries today that do have digital dollars that are running, like China. And so when you look at a country like China that is doing those manipulating tactics on those dollars against their citizens, we know that that power is available to them. Now, will they use it? I have no idea. Okay. But I still don't like the idea of somebody having that, right? So if you wanted to, and you took your dollar and you went down to the store and bought a candy bar, it should be your choice, right? It shouldn't be if the algorithm allows you to go buy that, So I just don't like that level of control. But it's funny that all of these problems, right? Massive inflation, massive money printing, and now they're giving money away like crazy, especially in an election year. Canada is feeling some threat because we might go into an election and they're giving away money like crazy, trying to gain more power. But this is the problem. As they keep giving away more money to everybody and their dog, inflation will continue high. And so unless they stop spending that money, inflation will continue. And that's why I still think that we are in a highly inflationary time for some time now. And it's going to remain for a while. This is not going to go away quick unless the government had massive cutting of programs, which I don't see either. So the idea for them is to either slow down demand by raising interest rates really high and kill demand of, again, never talking about supply of anything, or they can have devalue the dollar by printing a lot more, and we're going to have to get used to 15% inflation every single year. Which one of them do you think is better for you? You know, like if I got to get executed and I get to decide between getting shot or hanged, I don't want either one. And they're talking about massive decimation one way or another. I don't know a way out of this. I have never read anything from any economist that has a way out of this. I'm wondering what you guys think, you know? And here is the problem, I think, with all countries. Now, this does not matter if it's liberal, conservative in Canada or Republican and Democrat. It doesn't matter, because if you go look at a chart, it always swings from one government to the other, back to this one, back to the other, back to this one. And if you look at the money, though, the debt just keeps going up. It doesn't matter what government is there. We are printing money. And, you know, part of the problem is, not to quote Michael Jackson, but the man in the mirror, us, right? Because what we have asked the government to do is give us everything. And so we haven't been able to get by without having this free money all the time. We want all the benefits. And so one cool thing about humans, and maybe a bad thing, I don't know, you be the judge, is we don't tend as humans just to have one party for the rest of our life and stick to that party. What we tend to do is vote, and all the research shows that we vote for whatever is in our best interest. If you had a young family with a bunch of kids, they're going to vote for either party if they're saying they're going to pay for daycare. They're going to vote for their own self-interest. And I understand that. But since we have entered this crazy world in Europe, Australia, Canada, the States, and a whole bunch of other countries, they keep on using public funds to buy the next election and stay in power. Until we break that system, I don't know how we're going to fix it, right? And this went bananas after 2009, I think it was, Citizens United in the United States. After that, I mean, the gloves were off. So if we take all our tax dollars and just use them just to help people get in power, I mean, what money is left over to pay for any of the services that we need? And that is the really big danger. And I mean, it was too bad that we as people couldn't get together, because we have the brains and the will, and most people just want to be able to work and provide for their family. If we break it down and be really, really simple, people just want to be able to be left alone, be okay, and have the chance of upward mobility. What does that mean? That means if I was very poor and on welfare, like I was able to, maybe if I was very diligent, worked very hard, educated myself, I'd be able to provide a better life for myself over time and not be stuck in a caste system, maybe like in India, where if you were in a low caste, you could never get your way out. And that's what we want to be able to keep, is a system where people could, with hard work and education, be able to move up, improve their life. That's what we want. I mean, I don't think anybody on earth doesn't want that. And we don't want to have to be worried that there's not going to be any food for anybody to eat. So this whole war on farmers, I don't really understand it. Everybody has to eat, right? So Henry Kissinger always said that if you control the food, you control the people. But if you control the money, you control the world. And so when we see countries that are going to war now over money, we have to be afraid. Remember, the US wants to stay king of the castle. They want to keep that power. The European Union is trying to secure their power right now. China is also trying to become a reserve currency if they could. Now they're even talking about the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa want to get together and create their own type of money. All of these countries now are trying to battle it out for dominance. It's kind of like, what was it, Royal Rumble? I'm dating myself. If we go back to the 90s, you know, when 100 guys get in the ring and the last guy standing, they have to throw everybody out, and the last one standing will be the king. Kind of feels that way sometimes. There's so many players right now. This is a tumultuous time in human history, but I don't want you to go down with this ship. I don't want you to go down with this ship. So you guys know I'm not a financial advisor. I operate a real estate brokerage in Toronto, Canada, and we advise and consult people around North America mostly. But this is where we have to do some things. And this, I'm telling you what I do personally. Just, I think everybody should have a little bit of Bitcoin and Ethereum in their portfolio. Not a lot, just a little bit. What else do I always say? Get a little bit of silver, get a little bit of gold. Exact same thing. Listen, the price dropped a couple, 2% today. Great deals to buy some silver and gold. If you want to buy in bulk silver, you can buy a bigger bar. This weighs 7 pounds, 3 kilos. 3.1 kilos, about 7 pounds. You can buy something like that. You can start to get some good rental properties. Rental properties are very resistant to inflation if you have the right type in landlord-friendly jurisdictions. This is what we help our clients do all the time, is get into that to help you protect yourself. But if you are in a major city, and this is Europe, this is if you're in the United States, in Canada, Australia, if you're in a major city, you're at the biggest risk, and especially if you have a large home. Remember, it is not proportional. All real estate does not go down the same. In fact, if we look at Canada's statistics, Canada says that the percentage of change of prices for the entire country is only 0.5%, less than 1%. But if we look in Toronto itself, we have areas like King City down 50%, Brampton down 40%, Mississauga down 35%. Even areas downtown Toronto are down 25, 30%. But it depends on the type of home. So remember, you need to find the things that will not go down. This is not necessarily about making money through the crash, but preventing yourself from losing. Anyway, that's what I think. You guys agree with me or not? I'd love to hear your comments below. Remember, I'm always here for your health, wealth, and happiness. If you have any questions, always send them to me. And if you know one person that this could help, I would really appreciate it if you could send it to them. We're trying to get the word out to more people. Please remember to like, subscribe, follow to this, and I'll check you out in the next video. Hey, you guys, thank you very much for staying to the end. If you like that video, you might like this video, and you might like this one too.